Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's coverage of the inaugural season of the NASCAR Class C Maconi Setup Shop Big Series, the first of many for this recently rebranded series. This evening, we're excited to be bringing you top split action for the weekly straight the field race from iRacing's virtual Milwaukee Mile from the state of Wisconsin. Maconi Entertainment is here to bring you all the action for all types of racing, including the weekly Fast Friday series. No matter what you are racing, we can bring the action to life. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth for tonight's race is Alexander Balderas, with Eddie Smith working the controls as our producer, using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Alex, the Milwaukee Mile is returning to the rear world in terms of NASCAR action. It's been very highly anticipated coming in, and it's a track that produces lots of intense action. But we're getting ready to kick off tonight with the virtual version of the track. What can we expect to see tonight?
Well, tonight we can expect to see a lot of close quarters racing, and I'm sure the bumpers will be used for this 1 mile track located in West Allis, Wisconsin. The track was opened in 1903 with the last major change in 2004, 9.25 degrees of banking in the corners and 2.5 degrees of banking on the straightaway. Popular track for super late model racing, the relatively flat corners means passes will be made by sending it on the inside.
In turn, tonight going to provide a lot of pressure when it comes to the battle for the championship from the Milwaukee Mile, because when you look towards the conversation for the championship, here is how things look entering this race. 2 weeks left to go on the iRacing calendar, 8 weeks counting, 4 drops available throughout the season. Jacob Snyder in turn leading the point standings by 65 points. Jordan Coots, Oliver Cordell, and Thomas Lloyd the top 5. Justin Patel, along with Dakota Law and Jonathan Tuckness, Johnson and Brickley amongst your top 10 so far. And keep in mind some of the battles for Division 2 featured in. Andrew Lutz Jr. is leading the way in Division 2. And a tight battle currently with Ryan Oates, with Oates just a few points behind entering the Milwaukee Mile week. In other words, you want to win the championship, you better do well in the next couple weeks or hope that your worst drop doesn't come back to bite you.
Tonight the championship is really actually tightening up. Just a 65-point gap between Jacob Schneider and Ryan Andrew. I wonder if we'll see that gap come close here tonight.
It's going to be very curious when it comes to the Milwaukee Mile, especially when it comes to the type of racing this track produces. In turn, we're getting set to run 60 laps of action at this racetrack. If we can make our way towards our race information or Maconi Setup Shop race analysis for tonight, remember, no fast repairs available, 1 green, 1 checkered. Fixed series, meaning fixed setups for these drivers as they look to try and wheel it around the track. And this is a track that's been noted to be one of the best tracks, actually, for fixed racing because of how the racing can be here at the Milwaukee Mile.
And right you are. And for those who have missed our first 3 weeks of the S.O.F race coverage, this is iRacing's version of the cream of the crop, where all the top drivers expect to compete for not only for race wins, but for division championships, and overall title of the series.
In turn, it's time to find out how things will start here tonight. 23 trucks, an S.O.F of 4,033, and James Thurston coming out tonight to start on the pole. Ken Robinette amongst him on the front row. Hayden Swank, one of the fastest drivers in final practice prior to the switchover. Jordan Coots alongside in row 2. Joshua Dickens led that final practice session. He'll start alongside Rocky Wars, Curtis Sutton. David Cabrera, the 13th overall highest IR truck in 7th. Jacob Snyder, points leader in 8th. Reader Andrew Gahn, as well as Dean Brummett amongst your top 12, Alex.
Yeah, and right you are. And then rounding off in 13th, Joey Maschwitz alongside Logan Truitt. And then in the number 15 in 15th place, Tyler Tomasi and Braden Vincent. Then Jeffrey Maconi and then Terry Rigby in 18th. Chad Wilkes lines up 19th next to Nicholas Lamb. Andrew Chapman and Ryan Elmore round out the last row of the grid, along with Philip Ellis too.
That's all talked about your one in order here tonight from the Milwaukee Mile. Just about set to go. Track conditions tonight, 108 degrees Fahrenheit when it comes to the track surface, so very hot. Air temp around 78 degrees. Winds at the default 2 miles an hour to the north. In turn, Alex, when it comes to a race like this tonight, knowing there's 60 laps of the docket, what are your keys to win at the Milwaukee Mile?
Well, with the hot track temps, hopefully we'll see the right rear starting to wear off and the cheese trucks getting loose around here. But after that, if you keep your right rears in check and keep everything else good, a 60-lap race really isn't that long. Only 60 miles here in Milwaukee. It's going to be a pretty fast-paced race.
We have some problems down the front straightaway. One of the trucks has not moved from the grid. Braden Vincent has just moved, and the leaders are in turn 4, just about to take the green flag. 4 different drivers are risking black flags because the 20 machine did not roll from the grid. Not the way the back half of the field wanted this to play out. The front half is set to go. We're glad to have you with us on Maconi Entertainment. Green flags out. We're underway from Milwaukee. And a black flag for the outside pole sitter. Ken Robnett beat the leader to the start and finish line, Alex. He has to come into the pits.
That's a shame for being on the outside. James Thurston already to an electrifying start. Almost a half a second gap on the rest of the field. His pace is pretty good. I've raced with him myself. Him knowing how to save his tires is really going to help him here. And he'll come across the line to lead the first lap.
Curtis Sutton has also pulled out of the race just before the start of today's action. So already a couple drivers with significant troubles. We're just moments into the start of today's action. There's Robinette for reference. Currently back to 17th, having to serve a black flag under green. All while Hayden Swank trying to hold off Joshua Dickens and Coons.
And serving that black flag under green is going to be one of the worst things you can do, especially for your race. He's going to have to hope for a caution to come out and maybe hope to save the rest of his race. There's a lot of good battles here coming around to the back of the pack, already going 2, almost 3 wide. A lot of the sends and passes you'll see will be drivers diving it down the inside to make those moves. So we could see that second lane come into work, but mainly we're going to see those passes on that inside lane.
Yeah, and the tough part is if you're on the outside, no matter where you are, you might lose a lot of spots here. In a lot of cases, some drivers going pretty much backwards if they're on the top, not just Robnett. Drivers like Tomasi trying to find the way to the bottom. Jeffrey Maconi already up 5 spots on the top. All with Logan Truitt trying to play both lines on that inside. This is 11th.
So Jeff trying to use that outside lane to his advantage, and it looks like he can. He could try and wrap around, and using that second seam to maybe get a bit of extra grip on the right rear seems to be working. He has a lot of drive off the corner.
There's the crossover attempt. Truitt, though, slamming the door shut. Tomasi also jumping back in the line. All this allowing Gunn to make the switch back with Chad Wilkes at the back of this respective pack. This grouping about 3-4 seconds behind the race leader for reference. And you can tell with this track, again, you mentioned the need to get to the bottom. There's also the chance of shifting. In fact, most of the drivers shifting tonight to maximize those RPMs, just like Kuntz just did to make the pass for third.
Yeah, I was talking to James Thurston earlier. He said how shifting is going to get that car's RPMs up and get the power down on the racetrack. Said fourth gear barely topped out about 7K RPM, so shifting is going to be really, really good. But the problem is when you shift, you're putting more wear on the right rear and you could get loose. So using shifting at crucial points could save you, but it could also wreck you if you're not careful.
And that was actually a big talking point with Indianapolis Raceway Park a couple weeks ago, especially because some drivers utilized the shifting, some people did not. Similar times, short run, but long run had that issue, as you talked about. That could be a couple tenths. We'll see what happens here as Kuntz looking for second. Dickens is sliding towards him. Thurston sliding towards them both.
So Thurston could realize that he maybe needs to save a little bit harder than he was now that gap's starting to close for the lead. But right now he's looking really good, still out in the lead, 7 out of 60 laps completed. I'm hoping that he goes on to win, but right now, as it seems, still a great lead over the rest of the field. And as it stands, I think he has a good chance to win.
Still early going with the clean air. No poke arounds yet. You see there's the poke around, though, at the end of the top 5. This is Jacob Snyder underneath Ryan Andrew. Championship rivals side by side. Moves Snyder up 3 spots. Andrew still up a +4 despite the move in the Maconi Esports car and truck.
Good start for Andrew. He's made up a few spots, but now he has to defend with someone diving down the inside. And a late lunge from him, trying to make that second lane work. He slides up the track and gets loose. The rear end slides and almost turned himself off of Cabrera.
This is the most difficult part now, is because it's so bottom heavy. Eventually, someone, if they feel you're quicker, might try the dive. How do you manage that? would try to keep an eye on the back mirror, but also trying to make sure you run your line while not compromising your race speed, put you back up for grabs to be passed by that driver again.
It's really tough to manage the bottom here. You got to make sure when running the bottom, you don't leave the top lane too exposed, because drivers like Jeff have been able to use it and you can get past on either lane. Now, the top isn't as fast as the bottom, but if people can ring it and it's open, they're going to make up a lot of spots on people who just bottom feed. So this is going to be a tough race coming from any person's perspective on holding on to track position.
See a lot of your front runners already moving their way forward. Kuntz back to second. Jacob Steiner also is up to fourth position, passing Hayden Swank moments ago. You could almost tell with the difference right now, too. It's very tricky to get that right line, especially with some circumstances. Some like the double diamond, some like to wrap the bottom. But again, the better way is still get the power down off 4 if you want to make a pass.
And as you're talking about that, I've been looking the gap between Kuntz and Thurston, and right now Thurston seems to be a little bit slower in the center, but that drive off really maintains the gap. So he might be saving his tires through the middle of the corner and then just planning it on an exit. So this could go well for him, but Kuntz is going to have to turn up the pace if he wants to catch that 17 out in front as he taps the wall.
No damage, though, for the time being. Still within 0.7 of a second. I was just about to say, look at the line. They're almost identical now. That entire top 5 sequence as they've made passes. It's more so just getting that line sensitivity down. Here's the look for sure. Look line to line, draw a pencil. It's almost identical for much of the corner between Kuntz and Thurston. That line from Thurston, dead even to Kuntz for the time being.
Thurston looks like he's running about a half a lane off the white line. You know, maybe sometimes you find a little grip there, and as Jordan Kuntz replicates it, he rides the white line unlike Thurston, so that could be the different factor in this race. Now, Kuntz has caught up about a tenth so far. Let's see if he can gain any more time. 13 out of 60 here in Milwaukee.
And for those curious, by the way, at Ken Robnett, in terms of how he's been doing since serving the penalty, he's up to the top 21. He's passed Ryan Elmore on track, so he is 21 seconds behind the leader. Here's the interesting mark. He's as quick as the leaders, and if he continues a solid pace, he might still, if it goes green, have a chance to get to the top 10 if things spread out here. He's already looking for 20th on the recovery drive.
So far, a great recovery drive by himself, having to serve that black flag under green. Ken Robert now just 19 seconds away from the leader, so he's pushing hard and hoping for a caution, because if he gets the caution, he won't even have to get a lap back. He'll just line up at the rear end of the field, hopefully take some tires, and maybe, who knows, if there's chaos on the restart, he could gain some spots. Right now, good recovery drive as he passes the 20.
Now keep in mind, only 15 seconds he had to drive to the pit lane with the drive-through penalty as a result of being ahead of the race leader at the start and finish line. This is one of the quicker tracks when it comes to serving penalties or serving pit stop time in terms of lane time itself, because of just how quick you have to cut down to the inside for the pit entry. That's going to be big for the C Open side this week. Not expecting that for C Fix today. Meanwhile, here comes Maconi. He's been trying for a while to get around Logan Truitt. This time it's for 10th, and this time Maconi along on the inside. And so far, his biggest fan helping keep him cool, as he has a bit more of a shiny monitor today.
Looks great to me, and now he's battling going on behind him. Jeff now moving up into the top 10. Solid run from him, and the only driver I've seen in the field making that outside lane just work. Seems to be that he's able to have that grip to just get on the gas through the middle of the corner, and he's able to use that speed on exit to pass the guy he's trying to pass.
Brendan Gaughan also doing the same. The one thing I've noticed since the last time we've seen him, that LED strip on the monitor, that seems to be different. I believe that's a NASCAR logo and a U.S. flag that he has attached now to the monitor.
That's pretty cool. I wish I had something like that for the back of my monitor. That would be really cool to have in my room.
And here's the viewpoint when it comes to inside the cockpit on the TV cam. And with the VR, keeping dialed in. It's down to driver preference, right, if you use VR or not. And right now, trying to find a way to get to the next pack that is squabbling. Ryan Andrew is going back. Dakota Reeder is going forward, so Andrew has lost a lot of time. So has James Thurston, because Jordan Kuntz has closed up 3/10 and the past few laps. And now they're reaching traffic.
So now the leader is encountering traffic. How well does James now try and pass these lap trucks? That's going to be the biggest factor in whether or not he can keep his lead. Right now, the gap between 3 and 4 tenths between him and Kuntz. Kuntz has caught up a lot compared to what I thought from earlier. Just a few tenths for a few laps. That can really make the difference. And now James trying maybe push a little bit harder to see if he can pull out a gap. Now goes wide, but then cuts down for the exit. So his line changing too as we go with just a third of this race finished.
That was Andrew Chapman, by the way, the first driver to fall laps down outside of Sutton today. Not making too much of a factor with how quickly the give a go was on that sequence. So now it's the matter, how do you play this out if you're Kuntz? Because dirty air can be a bit of a factor here. He is sending it a little bit deeper on entry.
I bet you that Thurston's wanting him to close up to his rear bumper and get right near the dirty air. And that's really going well for James. He's had clean air this whole race. So he's been moderating the pace of the field. He could go slower, but then in turn that would give Kuntz the opportunity to dive it down the inside. But James, as you can see, going for the double diamond, has been really protecting that inside line as of late.
Yeah, and utilizing those rumble strips, because that's one of the more unique characteristics when it comes to the Milwaukee Mile. There are rumble strips when it comes to the inside. Very old school, especially for that pit exit side of the track in turn 1 and 2.
And it's interesting now seeing two different ways to run the corner. James running a different line in 1 and 2 than he is in 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is going for that big diamond to get to straighten the exit of the corner and get on the gas a lot sooner. And he's going for the double diamond in 1 and 2. So really shows the skill of these drivers here at the top and the cream of the crop.
Great battling so far here from the Wisconsin State Fair Park, Milwaukee Mile Speedway, as it's currently called, located at this facility around the 1950s, as we talked about earlier this year. For reference, eNASCAR making its appearance with the Coke Series at this facility. And that race was also intriguing to keep an eye on because of some of the factors of the Milwaukee Mile. For many years, when it comes to the off seasons though, the Milwaukee Mile has always been a prominent fixture of the Winter Series, where a lot of competitors run here because of that driver difficulty. It's a very driver-heavy track.
Right, you are. And the top drivers who are going to run here at the top level already doing great, as the top three now close to within half a second of each other. Here's a great battle in the back. Now coming up to lap traffic again. These guys are going to have to navigate here with just the earliest guy to go a lap down. That's Chapman there. Already a lap down as the leaders passed him just a few laps ago. Cabrera is now having to fend for his position in that 19. He's going to make sure that he doesn't leave the bottom too open, but now he has to worry about two trucks behind him who might run different lines to pass him.
This is the battle for fifth position. Hayden Sweet, amongst those in the midst of this hornet's nest, is a rear-wheel driver when it comes to late models. For reference, graduate from the University of Georgia just this past summer. So someone who keeps very busy. That a couple years ago was described as a driving wonderkind when it comes to NBC News.
Last time off of 4, it kind of looked like Brummett got to the rear end of David, so clearly pushing him along, wants to get past, but it's going to take him a little bit to decide whether he wants to pass him or not. This 4-truck battle is really shaping up to be a good one as they pass lap traffic with ease. Oh, and as I say that, he gets right in front of David Cabrera.
Able to get alongside, and there's the switch around. Cabrera able to get to the inside and hold off Brummett. Dakota Rader also staying in the line for the time being. Give Chapman credit. He's been very cordial when it comes to this lap, being a lap car here today, trying to stay out of trouble and stay out of the battles. He backed out quick with the leaders before the top 3. There he is right there trying to back out, knowing it's side by side about to form up with the Reader on the diamond.
You're right, you are. This could give the break for David that he needed now, trying to size up a move on Swank right in front of him. That's for the 5th position, now aiming for a top 5. He's right on his bumper, and it's just waiting for him to make a mistake. But now, Brummett is going to have to do a little more work to catch David once again.
Looking on board right behind Swank. And most people don't realize that when it comes to Hayden, actually. Didn't really tune in before doing the background side of things. It's had backing from several different groups, including Overtime, which is a sports brand in basketball league. Actually got sponsored as well by Old Spice a couple years ago as well on the late model circuit. Just 21 years old from Georgia.
Pay attention to the steering inputs we see from David. You can see that he's trying to, you can
Trouble.
see him turning right. Oh, trouble. Got a caution out of the racetrack, 28 out of 60.
And it's Terry Rigby who goes around for our first caution flag of the day. Rigby on his own, involved in the yellow flag. And now the field has a chance for fresh tires at the halfway point. Let's take a look.
And I mean, he was loose and tight at the same time, drives up the track and then completely loose off of 4. Slams the pit wall really hard. You can see loose off the corner. Looked pretty fine. Then he just got on the gas, trying to catch it. Looks a little loose. Right off the 4, and bam. Great sponsor placement, though. Unfortunate how it ended.
Yeah, head on and dead on into the wall as pit stops underway for the first time in this event. When it comes to tire sets available, just 2 available this week when it comes to the C-Fix side. So now it becomes the tricky part if we get a caution, depending on where you use the next set. Obvious plan, obviously, is take a set now.
Taking a set now is great, and as we've seen, it's not super hard to pass, but track position could mean a lot, as I assume the whole field is going to take 4. As James Thurston now his truck gets jacked up. A lot of these guys, and he's already off pit road, and it's going to be a tight battle. And James Thurston is your winner off of pit road. He'll continue to lead here in Milwaukee.
John Kuntz trying to floor it to try and make a pass, but can't with the first pit stall there. And everyone, as to be expected, 4 tires and potentially fuel based on their balance preference here today. So as we work around for the caution flag for the first time today, I'd like to remind you that this broadcast brought to you by Maconi Setup Shop and Maconi Entertainment. The home for setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, event promotion, and more on the iRacing service. With subscriptions available as low as $8 a month. For more information, go to MaconiSetupShop.com. Maconi Setup Shop, the official setup shop of eNASCAR and the official series sponsor of the NASCAR C-Fix Series. Tire numbers coming on in from competitors, by the way. A lot of drivers doing well conserving the right front. Still in the 80s, same for the right rears. Most of the leaders are reporting. Some drivers burning much more than others. The difference between, say, 4% of the right front tire in terms of those numbers you see in the pit lane sometimes could be a 1/10 of a second a lap by this point of that run.
And right as I was about to mention before we had our caution, riding on board with David Cabrera, really off of 4s where we saw him, having to overcorrect the car and, because he was getting loose. It's exactly what I talked about before the race had started. These hot temps are going to prove difficult for the right rear, especially when you have to plant the gas to get the run off the corner. It's going to be cool for these guys to see who can conserve the right rear the best, but who can also get on the gas the fastest to make sure that they use that run off of 4.
Your biggest mover, by the way, at the time of this restart coming up, Jeff Maconi is up 10 and is to 7th position. Ken Robnett, as a result of the caution, in 16th. That's going to be the driver to watch, though, that 3. From 16th, he was as quick, if not quicker, than Thurston at the top of the caution. As we get ready for 28 laps to go for the green.
And coming off of a recovery drive from that penalty, this caution is exactly what he needed. Get rebunched with the field and get another time to try and run it up again. I can't wait for him to see what his drive is going to look like now as we go with about 28 laps to go.
So with 28 to go, Thurston leads. It's in control in the restart zone. Kuntz alongside. Then it's Dickens and Snyder, row 2. Swank and Cabrera, row 3. Maconi, Gignon in row 4. Andrew and Reeder, row 5. 21 trucks are still in tonight's action. About to be wild is the understatement. It's a very small restart box when it comes to the Milwaukee Mile. They're already nearly bumping, coming to the green flag. Green flag's out, back and away. Oh, and a launch for second. Dickens makes the pass on Kuntz. Here comes Snyder for third.
It was a great jump from Thurston. Immediately went to the outside lane to get the arc for the corner. And they're already battling again. The 99 to the 11 going back at it. 3 wide in the back of the pack. And already a great recovery. And as Robinette's already up to 13th as he's sliding up the track He's going to keep it out of the wall now, but after a great restart, great to see him here, and he's going to end up just about 16th, about where he started now, trying to find for positions through the racetrack. Honestly, a good restart from him to stay out of trouble and gain some spots.
So a mistake in the midst of that battle, that forces him to regroup and reset. The back half of the field, still side by side, multiple rows deep. Maconi Munstall stuck on the top. Most of the others have already migrated to the bottom. Brummett and Munstall's trying to make passes up top that we've seen work a bit early last time when we had a start/restart. That's Truitt on the inside.
And remember, Maconi was one of those guys who could really use the second lane, and it looks like now he's using it to work. Already made some moves and now has passed Reeder. Now he's going for Gannon there just in front of him. Already starting to get on the right rear, making that top lane work. And so far, he's the only driver I've seen to really utilize that second lane.
More slipping and sliding as Reeder looking to get the side drafting down. Dakota Reeder just keeping things busy when it comes to the heart of the mid-pack. 9th and 10th still side by side. This is from Brummett. Brummett electing to get himself lined up as Reeder does have the momentum to try and clear.
And then you can just see the placement of his tires right on the seam. Jeff already side by side, already trying to make a move, and he gets a slower run off of 4, but he's making that top side work, and I wouldn't see if he couldn't pass the car in front of him.
And there's that differential we talked about, low to middle when it comes to this point of the run. So just like that, back single file, give that a second though. Because guess who's back? Robinette. Guess who's here at the lead? It's Joshua Dickens. And he's keeping the pressure up on Thurston.
And for sure about that, this has been the closest anyone's been to Thurston all race, so now Thurston has to make the decision. Does he push a little harder now that he doesn't have as much distance to the guy in second place? He's going to be within about 2.5 tenths now, Dickens to Thurston. This is going to be a good battle for the lead coming to 22 laps to go here in Milwaukee as Thurston goes and runs the bottom. Still running that double diamond there, but not as much of a wider line as he saw on older tires, trying to hold off Dickens as we come across the line.
And the rest of the top grouping starting to separate. Kuhn, Schneider, and the rest of those drivers more than a second back of these two. How some of the squabbling fared out. Keep in mind, we talked about this early on. Usually some drivers have the chance to practice. It's a small window, mind you, with the quick turnaround from Watkins Glen to the Milwaukee Mile in Sim. But you still have about 30 minutes or so to be able to practice, get a feel of the set. As mentioned, Dickens led the way in all drivers on speed in those final practices in the main practice grouping. And right now, you're seeing why. Once again, the double diamond, if not trying to get the full diamond off of turn 2 to close it, still within 3/4 tenths, and into the wall with the right rear.
And as you were mentioning about last week, this is been a good race for Schneider so far. He lines up 4th, still leading the championship as it stands. His second place competition, Ryan Andrew, in 7th spot. So still a good points day for all the top guys in the point standings. Not a bad day at all for really anybody.
And keep in mind, when it comes to the week, depending on how many races you run, it's either your best run if you run 3 or less. More than that mark usually becomes the average of your top 3 results to be able to calculate how many points you get. So in the case of drivers like Andrew, or in the case like, say, Robinette, you have to capitalize when it comes to all the races you run for points. Otherwise, you lose a lot of points, wouldn't you say?
And that's right on the dot. And right now, Robinette has moved up a few spots now, going from 16th to 11th. So gaining 5 spots so far with just 19 laps to go. He's going to easily break the top 10 by the end of this race and could maybe push for a top 7.
And you had to have winning speed if you qualify on the outside of the front row. Same setup for qualifying to the race after all. But now it's the matter of hoping he gets a little bit more luck if you're in that camp. Still under 20 laps to go, 18 to go up on the board, in fact. No major changes and shuffles amongst the top grouping here. But now remember, this is around that point of the run where Thurston's gap started going down. And that's where everyone else closed in Do we see that again is a big question mark.
And, right as I mentioned that, I was looking at the gap between Dickens and Thurston up to 0.4 at one point, and now closing back down to 2. So it looks like James may have made a mistake. And now almost going below into the 1/10 range, now going back up to 3. So clearly James is really good in the middle of the corner where he was slower earlier, but Dickens just has that exit on him. And now this is going to be a good battle as Dickens looks towards the inside but doesn't send him. With about 16 laps to go, Thurston still leads over Dickens, has almost led every lap of this race. But that could change here in a few laps as Dickens is on the hunt for first.
Thurston indeed has led every single lap so far. But now, what do you do if you're Dickens? See the difference in the lines. He's been trying to get this cut right here down for a while. But no one's been able to get alongside the leader at all today. What can you do?
Well, in this stage of the race, with just coming up to 15 laps to go, there's not a lot of time left. You got to really size up your moves and see, have I saved enough to give one big push at the end, or do I have to try and use the bumpers? 15 laps to go here in Milwaukee. James Thurston still leads over Dickens, Kuntz, and Schneider. Schneider looking to still lead the point standings coming out of this race. All the top 4 in points have had a good race so far. Ryan Andrew in 7th, second in points right now. This is shaping up to be a good race for all the point leaders so far, and a great breakout race for James Thurston as he still leads, but now that gap has closed to below 2/10, and this is closest to the bin has anyone been to Thurston, and the leader overall this whole run. Dickens now closing to 0.15.
Trouble on the back straightaway. Philip Ellis in the 23 truck slow. We still stay green. That could have been a factor if he stayed slow for these leaders. They still look to fight. Thurston has led every lap so far today here at the Milwaukee Mile and set himself on the radio. He was surprised at this point he was still able to hold on to the lead prior to the caution. Can he hold on for another 13 miles? Kuntz as well is starting to pick the tempo back up and is now running slightly quicker than the top 2.
Gained almost 2/10, almost 3 in that entrance, so Kuntz saved enough tire, now going up to 2/10 overall gained in the corner. He's hauling, and with how many tenths he's gaining per lap, we should see him come around 4 laps to go. So it could be a 3-car battle for the win, depending on Kuntz, whether does he turn it up even more than he already is. But Dickens going up to second place as James gets a little loose off the corner. Dickens almost in the wall, now down to a 0.166 on the front straightaway. This is shaping up to be a great battle here with 12 miles to go in Milwaukee.
Dead even once again off the corner. Trying to set it up, Dickens. Going deeper into the corner once again. Thurston on the backup. Nearly to the bumpers, lining things up on the diamond. 11 miles to go. 11 to go at the board.
James found a good exit off of 4 and now trying to get that gap back up to 2/10. Having someone 0.1 on your relative for long enough does try. It is a little tempting just to see if you can push a little bit further, but that extra push might cause you to make a mistake. Right now, James has been under pressure for the last 15 laps, and he's held it off great. Dickens still within 0.15 of Thurston. Has not budged much at all, and Kuntz actually isn't gaining as much time as I thought. Might need to push a little harder to catch these 2 leaders.
Trying to line it up on the outside again. Not able to get the good run. Thurston has been losing ground on the back half of the track. Front half, Dickens has been losing the ground. Not so much of it this time. Trying to line things up, looking as Dickens on the send. 9 laps to go at the stripe. A slide from Thurston. Dickens still can't make the move.
Thurston been under enormous pressure from all of these super fast guys, and he has held his own. Still at the front of the field now, down to a 0.16, as Dickens still closing right on the back bumper of James Thurston. Kuntz has gained another 10th or 2 and is trying to move up through the field, but it looks like his run's kind of stalled and he might be losing time to these guys absolutely pushing each other with just coming to 8 laps to go.
And you talked about pressurizing the mistake right now. The thing is, Thurston's handling the pressure extremely well here. If you don't elect to do the contact, because again, this is race 1 of the week, that would set the tone. What do you do? to try and make this work because he's trying the lines and still can't get to the quarter panel.
In this case, I see no other option than you might have to rattle someone's cage. Maybe get a little bit close to their bumper and take the air off, but looks like right now, James Thurston still almost opening up the gap to a 0.2 again. So Thurston really turning it up here with about 7 laps to go as he crosses the stripe. James looking to get his first win of the week on the opening race night. Dickens hopefully looking to steal that away from the 17 in front of him.
Still going to be mightily close when it comes to this fight. Usually this season, when it comes to Thurston, his most regular series involving the Gen 4 Cup as well as the ARC Menards cars, NASCAR Class A fix with the Cup cars. Looking to try and get what would be win 13 on the iRacing calendar year. Still 6 laps to go. Lap traffic is slowly creeping towards them. Not expected to be a factor in these closing miles.
I wouldn't say that too far, as James almost goes completely below the rumble strip, trying out different lines to see, and he has brought the gap back up to a 0.2, but a good exit for Dickens now closes that back down to a 0.1. Lap traffic doesn't seem to be a factor, but that could change. Now Thurston going up the track and getting a good straight line exit as Dickens almost hits the back of Thurston. Coming across the stripe with 5 laps to go here in Milwaukee, just 5 miles to settle it out, and who comes out on top?
The lap truck, by the way, you see there at the left upper corner is Ellis, who had that issue down the back straight away. Now it's Dickens, the closest chance now to the bumper. Is this close enough to go for the brake move? Thurston goes for his line. Dickens holds the mark. There's the contact. Dickens riding close to the bumper. There goes Ellis trying to move out of the way, now bobbling down the front stretch. Leaders coming in for the go high. There goes the lap truck out of the way with 4 laps to go.
And there exactly, as I saw that contact would have to been made to just see if you could maybe just scoot Thurston out of line and try and get him to go underneath. But now, Thurston's still holding off the gap quite well, now down to almost below a 10th as they go back into turns 3 and 4, coming to 3 laps to go, just 3 miles left to settle it around Milwaukee. James Thurston has almost led every single lap of this race and on pole. Could he pull off the sweep here in one night in the first race? Now Dickens back up to a 0.2, but it looks like he might try and close the gap using that second lane. And right now I think Thurston has all about 1, but it's up to the final 2 laps to see what will play out.
Keep in mind, if things start to bubble over, Kuntz is now picking up the tempo again. He's back within 1 second. He needs a lot of fighting, though, to be able to get a full chance at these 2 for the win. 2 miles to go for the Milwaukee Mile. Thurston Dickens, quarter of a second, the difference between the 2.
And what we have not actually counted in as a factor is if a caution comes out, there is a green-white checkered attempt. Now, I would believe everyone would come down to pit road, but seeing as that Dickens hasn't been able to get past James, track position could be one of the things. So if a caution comes out in these last couple of corners, it could mean the be-all and be-all for James Thurston. But as it comes off of 4, as the white flag flies, it's James Thurston to lose and Dickens to try and steal it.
White flag is out, final time around from the Milwaukee Mile. Thurston parking on the apex. Dickens trying to send as deep as he can. Good exit once again for the Maconi Entertainment. 1 to go. Half a track to go. Kuntz is coming. 1 more chance for Dickens. Does he use the bumpers? No. Thurston plants it off the exit. Launches through the apex and comes out of the final corner with a slide. James Thurston takes the checker flag and leads tail to tail to win at the Milwaukee Mile. 60 of 60 to start the weekend, the S.O.F win.
That's a dominant win if I've ever seen it. On pole, currently first, highest first, and lowest first. Didn't leave the first position at all. Led every single lap, and total domination from James Thurston.
And what can you say? Dickens provided a ton of pressure to try and battle there. But in the end, Floridian able to park and hold on. Keep the consistency up all race long. One of the fastest trucks on the averages all throughout the race. So in the end, 20 on the lead lap. Thurston celebrates with a slide into the wall. And as he celebrates, we'll take the chance to say goodbye Or rather, a quick break before we go and check out the results. You're watching Maconi Entertainment.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need, Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Milwaukee Mile here on iRacing from the fairgrounds of the state of Wisconsin. Let's take a look at your race results. Things officialized in sim. James Thurston holding off Joshua Dickens by under 0.2 of a second to go and lead every single lap here today. Jordan Kuntz finishes off in third, starting off in the top 4, staying there. Jacob Snyder, the points leader of the series, in fourth, with Hayden Sway, reward driver in late models, in the top 5. Ryan Andrew finished off in 6th, with Cabrera, Bremet, and Robinette recovering from his black flag to get to 9th. And Dakota Reeder quietly holding on to the top 10 today.
Brandon Gagnon from North Carolina rounding out in the 11th spot. Jeff Maconi with a good run up to 12th. Chad Wilkes now rounding out in 13th, and Logan Truitt. Joey Maschewitz, Tyler Tomasi, Ryan M. Elmore, Braden Vincent, Nicholas Lamb, and Andrew Chapman rounding out the top 20.
The last of the finishers today, Philip Ellis, 1 lap down, the only driver lap down at the checkered, who was still running. Terry Rigby bringing out the only caution of the day, 33 laps down, and Curtis Sutton, who qualified really well, actually, in the top 6, elected not to run the race in of itself, though. He finishes 23rd. That's a minus 122 estimate on iRating. In turn, let's take a look and take a discussion with one James Thurston. James Thurston picking up the victory today here on Maconi Entertainment. James, from flag to flag, you get it done. What was the pressure like trying to hold on with Joshua Dickens, keeping within a couple tenths all throughout that final 20-lap run?
Man, that was he had me sweating there that last run. I didn't expect to come in here and really compete that much, but yeah, I guess I led every single lap of the race. Yeah, that was a lot of fun out there, and geez, that I didn't think that last run was going to even be possible, because I thought these things just had too much dirty air, and if I just held the lead, that's kind of what I was thinking. So that's why I was battling so hard out there with Kuntz, because I knew, if I let him pass me, I was never going to see him again. It's just the dirty air in these things is kind of crazy. But yeah, that last run was absolutely insane.
Yeah, indeed. And in turn, what was that truck feeling like in terms of that discussion point, in terms of that battling? You had clean air the whole race. What was that feeling in the clean air?
I mean, man, I think in clean air it felt better than everybody else, but it still felt pretty bad. I think it's mostly due to the gearing of this thing. It doesn't tack out very much, so you have to shift a lot going into third every single corner. And I couldn't tell at the start if I was just the only one shifting or what, but I kind of pulled really hard, and I was kind of confused if I was doing something that was going to come back to haunt me. But clearly it was not the case. But yeah, the setup was a setup, but just overall, just a lot of fun.
In turn, should we expect to see you throughout the week? Because you've been running a lot of Gen 4 these days, so do you plan to run Milwaukee more?
We'll see. I did this race mostly because I knew Alexander Balderas would be covering it, and I'm his friend. But yeah, but yeah, we'll see. I don't even know where Gen 4 is this week. I might do some of that. But yeah, just can't believe I got that done there. That was a great race. Thanks to Power Smash Infinity Speed Motorsports, by the way.
Well, congratulations on the victory today. Congrats on the S.O.F win.
Thank you.
James Thurston, your winner today here at the Milwaukee Mile. While we have the chance, why don't we also grab Jeff Maconi? He's with Alexander Balderas, and just so Jeff knows, Your winner in the S.O.F race ran because of Alex.
Yeah, I can't believe I brought him in here. Jeff, good race here tonight. You gained a few spots there and had a good race strategy, ending up 12th. How was that race for you, and how do you think you ran?
Well, I definitely was not as prepared as I could have / should have been. Those were actually my first laps on track. This week in the setup and everything, I ended up taking a nap right before the race, so woke up, got in, got everything set up for my stream, and then jumped in the car and completely butchered qualifying, started P17, and then I drove my way up to like 9th or 10th or something. Got to 7th on the pit stop, and then I let Ryan go. I knew Ryan was going to be fast now that he had figured out everything after the first run, and I let him go, and I just got freight trained back to 12th, or maybe back to like 14th, and then worked my way up to finish 12th at the end. So I was very, very happy with it. I had a lot of fun. That was definitely a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I was a bit worried.
Yeah, you were one of those only guys that I could see actually making that second lane work. Maybe, without giving so many of your secrets away, maybe explain how you were able to do that.
I think most of it ended up coming down to tire saving. I would push the first 2-3 laps of the run, get all the positions that I could, and then it's really hard to make passes here, but it's not hard to stay within range of the guys in front of you, if that makes sense. So if they wanted to go and push and run away and battle each other, that was fine. If someone wanted to dive bomb me, that's okay. I would just let them go and do their thing, and then 20 laps later, I would have better tires, and it ended up working out well. But yeah, with that second lane, you want to sort of time your downshift really later than you feel like you should, and that just gave me a really great pull on corner exit to get clear in the end. That was the big help, I think.
Well, as S.O.F races go, this was actually pretty calm. Just one caution for a self-spin off of 4. I mentioned there early in the beginning that these hot track temps will get the right rear kind of sliding around. You didn't look like you were sliding around all that much, so how were the conditions out on track for most of the run?
I think I got lucky because I run a lot of short track stuff, and that's sort of this is just a large short track. A lot of super late models and modifieds races here on iRacing in the past for me. So my right side tires when I pit were actually 82/91. So I was not getting any sliding on corner exit. If I needed to lean on it, I could. And I think that also came down to those really late shifts. I wasn't sort of just burning the tire off and sending the car in on the middle of the corner like some guys were. And then I would just slowly roll into the throttle, and it stuck perfectly. So I think that helped a lot as well. So my right side tires were actually 82/91 at halfway, and I was feeling great.
So really, tire saving on the long run really came into effect. Now, James was talking about the dirty air being a factor of why he kept the lead. What was your experience with it, and how do you think you kind of conquered it?
If there was one point in the second run where 2 guys were battling in front of me, and I was about 1.2 seconds back, and in 2 laps, I pulled up to within 4/10, and I couldn't get any closer. So once you hit that 4/10 bubble, you have to wait for the other guy to make a mistake, or you have to get a really good run on corner exit and stick your nose to the inside to make up any ground, but then you sacrifice the next corner entry. So it's tough. About 4/10 is that bubble. So if you're within 4/10 of someone, just know it's going to be really hard to pass them because of that dirty air. It is absolutely in effect this week.
Well, showcasing a few different lines you can run and giving a few tips to anyone watching. Going from, I think 17th lowest to 12th now, pretty good run for yourself. And going through all those spots and going up to 7th highest, I think that was a good race from yourself, starting from the back and ending up finishing pretty good. Could have had a top 10. What do you think total about the race before we end this off?
I had a great time. I am far from versed in fixed setups. Ever since I got on the service, I would run like the modifieds, which when I started were all open setup. There wasn't a fixed setup variant of it yet. And so for the past 6 years that I've been on iRacing, it's been 5 years that I've been on iRacing, maybe 6. I've always been running open sets, and so now that we're sponsoring Fixed Set Series and doing these broadcasts and doing everything that we are with iRacing, I wanted to jump in and get this experience on racing on fixed setups, and it is just completely blown me away how difficult it is. So for me to finish 12th in a 4,000 S.O.F against guys that run the series for years, I'm very happy with it. I think I'm top 100 in points, which is crazy to me. That I'm even ranked that high. So I'm just out here having fun. As long as I finish top half of the field, or above my door number, either or, I'm pretty happy. So this was definitely a lot of fun. I'm very, very happy with working my way up to 7th and knowing I had the speed to go up and run with those guys. I just lost a little track position. I'll try again next week. It'll be fun.
Well, good race from you and good showcase of what you're able to do, especially when, timing those shifts and using that outside lane. Thank you so much for your time and good race tonight.
Absolutely, and I got to say big thanks to Maconi Setup Shop, Maconi Entertainment, Maconi Competitive Zone for the whole team behind the scenes there. Victory Sim for this amazing rig, a Bruzy Racewear for this awesome merch, Ron the Snack Guy, the Sim Racer movie, WSMN Broadcasting, everyone that makes this possible. It is so much fun getting to go out and run some pretend race cars every Monday night on iRacing. I can't ask for anything more.
Well, thank you so much, and good luck in the races coming this week.
Thank you.
Once again, that's Jeff Maconi taking the time to speak with us. I'd like to thank him and James Thurston for taking the time to speak with us here at Maconi Entertainment. And Alex, in turn, your final thoughts on how tonight played out. Just one caution here tonight in the S.O.F race. And Thurston saying the main reason he ran is you. Well, I guess thank you very much for win 13, I guess you can say.
Well, I was glad to bring him out here. I informed him of it before we went live, and he said he'd hop on in and run some laps in practice, see how it felt. Complained a little bit about the shifting, but once he said he got it under wraps, he said he might have a good chance to win. Landed on pole, led every lap, and finished first. But it was no easy win, like he said. In those last 15 laps, being hounded by about a 1/10 gap is certainly no easy feat, especially with the amount of pressure, just as we're seeing on your screen now. That was with what James had to deal with those last 15 laps. So really showing his sturdiness as a driver. You see, he's gotten a few maybe asks around. Maybe I shouldn't say anything about that, but he's certainly maybe not looking for the top of the field, but people are looking at him. So great race for him, and it's a great race for everybody in the field as we go talk about points. Everyone in the top 4 in points had a pretty good race so far, most of them ending up in the top 10. And overall, this race was pretty calm for the first big race of the season. Only one caution off a self-spin-off 4. Overall, great racing. Saw some pretty close and tight battles. Saw the second lane being used. Milwaukee, when it comes back to real life, we could expect to be seeing great racing there.
Indeed, it should be intriguing to say the very least. But on that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning in, as well as to the race sponsor, Maconi Setup Shop, as well as our broadcast partner, Maconi Competition, for calling the action tonight. Myself was Justin Prince alongside Alexander Balderas in the booth with Eddie Smith producing. Thanks to all our viewers for watching tonight's racing action. We hope you stay tuned to all of our social media pages for our next race. Thanks to the entire staff for their work in bringing this racing to you. This has been a production of Maconi Entertainment. We'll see you next time.